Some people may think that asking God for a word of the year is silly and it's just a trend and it doesn't hold any spiritual weight. But I believe that it's not just a word, it is prophetic direction, promise, and focus from God. Welcome to the Dreams and Prophecy podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Irene Woods. And in today's episode, we are talking about the importance of receiving direction from God for your new year and how you can do it. I started asking the Lord for direction for my life about 12 years ago when I realized that He spoke to us beyond Scripture and that He would give us direction and promises that we could partner with Him on. I then started hearing people talk about picking a word for their year. It's not something that I was familiar with until then. And I knew that there was something so much deeper where God wanted to pick it with us. And He also wanted to confirm why it would be that word. So it wasn't just something that we would, just sit down and be like, okay, I think that this is the word that you have for me. But we'd actually have confirmation. Like we'd have this knowing from God. Like maybe He would speak beforehand. And when you sat with Him, that you would just know because He had already been speaking to you. So each year, I would listen for what God had for my year. And sometimes I would get one word, or I would get a few words, or even a phrase that would help me prepare for what was to come. And this is just how I started out when I realized that we could partner with Him in this. And I found that He always prepared me and He spoke into what I would need for the year ahead. And a lot of times we're not going to discover that until we start building that history with God, until we start sitting with God and receiving these things. And then we receive confirmation. And then we can look back and go, wow, you really did go before me. And I believe that when God gives us a word, it causes what He is speaking to manifest or be experienced in our life. And I don't want you to be afraid of the word manifest, because I'm not talking about like empty manifestation. I'm talking about the Lord. You know that it says that His manifest presence. When the Lord speaks, it causes, and it causes those things to manifest. And you can actually tangibly experience them. So one year He gave me the word strong and strength, but He went a little further and He's like, you're going to have like strong as your word, but you're going to have strength of mind, spirit, and body. And I want you to focus in those three areas. I was actually laying on the ground and I was doing like stretching and stuff. And I looked up and I saw I have this print on my wall, and it is, I believe it's Joshua 1:9. And it said, be strong and courageous. And that word strong just really like was elevated and highlighted to me. And I had this knowing that's my word. And then He went into, further. Okay, it's strength of mind, spirit, and body. And that's just one way that, when you start to build a history with God, when you start to partner with God for your year, and maybe you do this all the time, or maybe this is your first time taking it further than just, well, let me just pick a word, but you actually like do it with God and have those confirmations, you start to get like that knowing, because you've built that history, you know how He speaks to you. And after looking back on that year, I needed that word in every way, in mind, spirit, and body. And He went before me, before my year began, to speak what I would need. And that allowed me to partner with Him for those things. Like I would remember, oh, you gave me this word when I'm not feeling strong, when I'm, having a hard time, like, you know, exercising, working out. I don't feel, my body didn't feel strong in that year. I think it was coming off of the pandemic, and I had gone from being very active outside the home, and then I was working from home. And so I didn't feel strong. Like my body felt like, man, I've really been sitting a lot. And just my mind, and just after everything, that was going on in those years. And so he went before me, and he will go before you. When we partner with God for our year, it's very intentional. It's not just some empty word that carries no weight. We can actually partner with God in that, and he will remind us, he goes before us. So because of that history that we have built together with him speaking directly to me, I pay attention to that through other people. I value the prophetic and how the Lord speaks through other people, and my night dreams, that combination. I trust what he says. So when he gives me the word strong and strength of mind, spirit, and body, I'm like, okay, that is what you are going to do with me this year. And it allows me to really put my confidence in that because of the history that's built. So whether you've been doing that for a long time, building history with God, or this is your first time, you're new at it, we all start somewhere. I started, and because you're gonna live a long life. So it's like, why not start now? And why not continue? So maybe you find yourself where I haven't done that in a while. Well, pick it back up. Now is your time. So wherever you are, now is your time to do this. And so last year, I would say the last year and a half actually has been more difficult than I've experienced in a long time. And I think we can all say, we go through these times where it's like, okay, we're having a great year. Things are just happening, right? And then sometimes you go through times where it's like really, really challenging. You're like, what is going on, right? It's kind of just like that flow of life. And so this year and a half has been really difficult. And when that happens, you tend to partner with God a little differently, if you know what I mean. I think it causes us to be a little more intentional with what he's saying. At least from my own experience, I partner with God in my everyday. That's just become my life. When I realize that God will partner with you and we can hear him, it hasn't changed since then. I was like, wow, okay. I need to hear from you. And so my everyday is like that. But when I go through challenging times that are really a little more difficult, I partner a little differently. And I think it's like your every moment. And I feel like I do that all anyways, but it's just different. I think you know where I'm going with that. And so this year I got 2 words, and I will usually see a vision of the word in my mind's eye. Um, and at the same time, I hear the word like internally. So we all hear God in different ways. Maybe you have an open vision. I've had a couple of those. But that's not like the regular way that I hear God or see things. Or maybe you have just this knowing. You're like, I just know. I don't know. I just know. Or maybe you see a word, like maybe you're one where you see a sign on the interstate or a street sign or something in a magazine and it pops out. You physically see the words before you, and it's highlighted to you. Kind of like when I laid down on the ground and I saw the word strong on that uh, wall art that was in my house. That word strong stood out to me. So pay attention to how you hear God and really, press into that and how you're going to receive. Now, there are times that you can go explore further and you're like intentionally like learning to hear him in different ways. But when you're, doing this, you're like, I'm preparing for my year. Go with the way that you naturally hear him, the way that you're kind of confident so that you can partner with him in that. And so, like I said, for me, I see a vision of the word in my mind's eye. So it's like a picture in my mind. And then I kind of hear the word when I see it. And so this year I got 2 words. I got the word vibrancy and mighty. And my process is when I saw those two words, I wasn't immediately like, those are my words. I asked the Lord, okay, is this what you're speaking to me? Is it vibrancy? Is it mighty? And I kind of settled on it, but I was like, how do those two go together though? What are you speaking, Lord? And I really do pay attention to how has God been speaking to me? What is my history with this season of how he's been speaking to me? What are the things that I've been collecting? Because I I start to pay attention. What are you speaking now? What have been my prophetic words? What have been things that I just know? What are my night dreams? What have you been preparing me for? And so another way that God speaks to me a lot of times, which I love because for me, it's like, it's obviously just maybe how I'm wired and how he knows the things I need. But he speaks in my night dreams, things I'm asleep. I can't make those things up. They're happening. But he will give me something that I don't know the full definition on. And when I look up the definitions, it confirms it. And this happens to me a lot. So it's a way that I know he speaks. And so I know it's like he's going to confirm it. He always does, and he's going to do it. He's faithful. He's not trying to play games with me. Sometimes maybe he's wanting you to grow in a certain area. And so he's like, it's like he's teaching you. But in these moments, it's normally not that. I'm like preparing for my year. And so when I looked up the definition for vibrancy, it says full of energy and life, bright and strong, full of vitality, strong and active, vigorous, strong, healthy, full of energy, physical strength, bodily or mental strength. Now, and then the word mighty. So I was like, okay, these do go together. And this speaks to what I not only have hoped for this new year, but what I need and what you have been speaking to me. I mentioned that uh, we've had just a really tough year and a half. Not only at 48, I started going through lots of changes in my body, my overall energy, my strength, my mood, and a lot has changed. And I'm doing something about it. I'm making those changes to help support that. And so going into the new year, that there are things that I'm stepping into that are going to help with that are going to actually confirm that word of vibrancy, energy, strong and active, strong, healthy. And my husband, Chris, and I, we have been, really working on our health, exercising, what we eat for, I would say, let's just say from 1 to 2 years now. And so these are all things that have been happening in our life. And I feel like the Lord, with those words, he's going before and going, I know that this was a hard season for you guys. And moving forward, this is what your year is going to be. And so on top of that, as a family, we've gone through lots of trying things. And it's been just kind of like a lot of exhausting things. Like the hurricane that came through, it destroyed our kids' home. They moved in and they were just displaced for a while. They're just getting back in their home and it's still not even complete. So when your kids go through things, you go through things because, your heart is for them. And so we went through that. And then our 9-month-old grandson, he had to have a really big surgery. And, it was one that you're like, Lord, protect him. And, just all those things and just some other things that our family has been navigating. And so it has been overall a tough year. Personally, I've dealt with anxiety, racing thoughts, fears that I haven't experienced in over 10 years. And so I'm looking forward to, I'm like, what is this year going to be, Lord? And remember when I said that sometimes when you have these challenging you know, difficult times that you go through, you kind of partner with God a little differently. And I think in this, I was like, I'm really looking forward to a new year. What are you saying? Even though throughout my year, I'm asking the Lord, what are you speaking? But I am looking forward to a new year. I love new things. And I do believe that there are shifts that happen in when you complete a year and move into another year. There's the completing of things and the beginning of some new things. And so um, the Lord had been speaking to me that this year is going to be different. And even though I wasn't seeing that, the Lord said. And so I was preparing myself to partner with what he said. And sometimes we do need a big confirmation to shift our belief. And I am not one to say, don't ask don't ask God for a confirmation. So I want to clear something up here, and I want to give you permission to move with the Lord for you. And you can ask the Lord for confirmations. So, not to be shamed that, well, you don't need another confirmation. Well, maybe you do, and that's okay. You know, the Lord, you have permission to move with the Lord and not be lumped into just a general message of you don't need another confirmation, you know, but maybe you don't, but ask the Lord, right? And so any shame of feeling like, well, I don't feel confident in this, I need another confirmation, you move with the Lord, okay? Let's we'll just put that aside. So I needed a big confirmation to shift my belief going into a new year and a new season. And in November, I flew to Maryland to officiate my spiritual daughter's wedding, and it was amazing. And before I left, I grabbed a Magnolia magazine. And my history with the Magnolia magazine is that God speaks to me through every edition. And I love adventure. I love signs. I love hearing God's voice. And God confirms those things. I'm a dreamer, and I believe that he loves that adventure with me, and I love that adventure with him. And one day I was at the grocery store, and I heard him say, like, internally, that feeling of there's going to be prophetic confirmation in that Magnolia magazine. And so I grabbed it and I took it home and I started opening, going through the pages, and there were words specifically to me. One of the words is free as a bird. Now, free as a bird was one of the very first confirmations that I asked the Lord for. A prophet had come to our church, and I wasn't familiar with prophets. And I think this was my second, really my like second interaction with the prophetic, but like somebody that was like, oh, this is a prophet. And so I was like kind of hesitant of, what this is. And I asked the Lord for him to speak something before he got to me. And right before he got to me, he yelled, free as a bird. And if you don't know, oh, free bird fly, free bird, those are words and things that God has spoken to me and is my history with him. And so in this Magnolia magazine, I open it up and I see this girl riding a bike, and it says free as a bird. And then throughout the magazine, he confirmed a workshop name that I had picked and just all these different things. So that started my exploration and my journey of him speaking through the Magnolia magazine. So that's just a little history of why this is so significant. So I needed that big confirmation going into this new year because of the challenges and the things that we experienced as a family, but I was personally experiencing. And so I was flying. And, when you're on the plane, you need something to read. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to grab one of my Magnolia magazines. And I have a stack of magazines because I get the edition every quarter that it comes out. And so they have different editions like spring edition, summer, fall, all of those. Well, I couldn't find the current one that I had. And so I grabbed like 3 or 4 and I put them before me. And I was like, which one do I grab? And I grabbed this one. And it is the Magnolia Spring 2024 edition. And I looked at it and I asked the Lord, I was like, am I in a spring season? And then I just asked him that quick question. And I was like, well, I'm just going to grab this one. So I put it in my bag and I get to Maryland and our friend Sandy went with us and we're in the kitchen and Jenna and her, at that point, it was soon to be husband, Ray, was there and he was about to leave and he's about to walk out the door and Sandy says, they're supposed to pray over you. And so I know that when Sandy speaks that she's hearing from the Lord. And so I yelled for Ray and Jenna. I was like, hey, y'all have to come back here. You're supposed to pray over me. And so they come over and they pray over me. And as they're praying, Jenna says, I see cherry blossoms and you and Chris are in a spring season. Now, this Magnolia magazine has, you can see like the cherry blossoms and it says spring 2024 on it, a season for possibility, speaks my language all the way around. And when she said that, when she said, I see cherry blossoms and you and Chris are in a spring season, not only did she see cherry blossoms, but the edition that says spring. And I just started laughing and I had to run and get this magazine and say, I have to show you why I'm laughing and what a confirmation this is. So the Lord has been preparing me for this new year. So the Lord will prepare you. So when you sit and you're like, God, what do you have for my year? Just know he's been speaking all along. So you get to pull from like what you're hearing and what has God been speaking to you? What are your prophetic words? What are some night dreams that you've had? What do you have a knowing for? Maybe you don't have prophetic words or night dreams, but what's a knowing that you just had a sense something is coming, a new season is coming. And that is how you can partner with the Lord and have a knowing and like that's how that's why I feel like just building history with God has given me so much confidence. I know that I hear his voice. I don't question, do I hear his voice? Is that him? Is that something else? No, I know my Father's voice. Not only does scripture say that we know his voice and that he speaks to us, we can build history and have that knowing with him. We walk with him. So step into these things and throughout your life, build that confidence. I didn't just do it once. I do it, I'm going to do it my entire life because it's continual history that you're building with him. And so she didn't know that I grabbed that magazine. Sandy didn't know, Sandy had a feeling I sensed that they're supposed to pray over her. And so she spoke it out, but then it was on me. Do I hesitate or do I ask them to do it? I'm like, no, you better get back here. You have something for me. Right. And then Jenna partnering with the Lord and actually speaking what she saw. Because sometimes, you see that I see cherry blossoms and you're in a spring season. Sometimes we can hesitate with what we see, but I say, just say it, right? Like it could be a confirmation for someone. So it confirmed so much. And that really was like the beginning of a big shift that I could see, not only see, but believe for what God had for my year. And so when I got vibrancy, and when I got mighty, I knew this is it. And when I saw those definitions, I was like, oh, yeah, this speaks to what you've been speaking. Absolutely, this is it. And I can confidently partner and place my expectation on it. I expect vibrancy. I expect it to be a vibrant, mighty year. Another little way to partner with God is that, you know, there's that confirmation. The Lord's like, you are in a spring season, but we hadn't seen some of those things yet. So I went there. Did I say I was in there November? And now we're at the end of December. We're about to go into the new year. And so I got to partner with it. Even though I didn't see those things, I was like, you said we're in a spring season, Lord. Show me what a spring season, show me some of the signs of a spring season. So we get to partner with his word. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so how can we receive and partner with his prophetic words for a year? Like, how can I practically do this? And I'm going to give you some practical ways that you can do this. So, receiving, just start asking him what he has for your new year. Get the conversation going with him. Next, you want to set aside time to intentionally ask, listen, and write down what you hear. You can just start like asking the questions. What do you have for my year? Just like, is it this? It's, start dreaming for your new year and then set aside that time. Some questions that you can use are, Lord, what do you have for my new year? What can I focus on? Do you have a word for me or direction for me? And those are just some questions you can ask the Holy Spirit to kind of get you going and really having that dialogue with the Lord. And it may come as one word. You might just get one word. Look up the definition for it. See, like, go further. Well, or ask the Lord, well, what do you mean by this word? Because a word, he could give you the word strong, but it could mean many different things. Strong in what? Strong in my mind, my body, my words. So you want to go a little further. He might give you a few words. One year, I think he gave me 3 words, and they were for different parts of the year. Like, this is for the beginning, this is for the middle, this is for the end. So when you get that word, don't just stay there. Like, ask for more. He might give you a paragraph of direction. I've done spirit-led thinking. That's how I first started like really hearing God, was this. I would ask him, like, what do you have for this? And then I would just start writing, and I wouldn't stop until I didn't hear anything else or sense anything else. And then I would look back at what I wrote, and I was like, whoa. And I wouldn't question. Even if you got like a word like that didn't seem like it fit in what he was saying, I would write everything down. And so you want to go further and ask these questions. And he may confirm what you have already been sensing, like we talked about, and you kind of know right away that is it. So those are just some questions that you can ask in ways that you can receive what he's speaking for your year. And you may need some more time in confirming. Now, a lot of times I'll get something and then I just sit on it. I'm like, okay, I got this. And then maybe the next day I'll ask more and write more, or I'll wait a week and I'll come back to it. So that's okay. And I think that's good. It's actually good because then you have time to ask more questions. You're kind of like meditating on it. You're asking the Lord. You're considering what he's speaking. Is this what he's speaking? It gives you time, and that's okay to do that. But you just want to start the conversation. You could even start journaling each night and listen. That is a practice I do most nights is, I will journal. What are you speaking? Those type things. And once you have a knowing, embrace it. Don't do the wishy-washy back and forth. Decide, I know my Father's voice, and I'm going to step and embrace this and go with it. Even if you've never done this before, that's how you're going to build history. And I think you're going to look back and you're going to go, wow, that's exactly what I needed. And that's, you're going to build a history with him that I do hear him and I hear him like this. So you want to kind of like, I say, take the risk on it. And then I always say, like, it's not a risk with the Lord, but we kind of sometimes feel like it's a risk. Um, but it's not a risk with him. And then let him confirm it. But you want to start somewhere. And how do you partner with it? I love, it's one thing to receive, but what about stewarding it and partnering with what he's given you? That's the go a little further part. And that's how you're going to, when you partner with it, you're going to have the confirmations, you're going to see, and build that history with God. Um, so partnering with it could look like start a new journal for your year and start the first pages with the word or words and what you hear God speaking about it. I do a journal, one journal by my bed for the year. And then like I'm closing it out. I have pages left, but come the end of December, it's going to be the last entry into it. And I'm going to have a new journal. I'm just giving you some little like insight into how I do it. I do start, you'll see in my journal, like I'll start asking the questions about what he has for my year. And you'll see I have my words he's given me and my process and the questions I'm asking him and what he's spoken. And then I'll take into the fresh journal for the new year and I'll put at the beginning like what he said. So look up the definition and write them out. That's partnering with it. Ask the Lord to speak to you about the words or words, writing these things down, journaling them. It could be maybe you like to journal, maybe you like to put notes in your phone. Those are two ways that you could do it. I'm sure there's other ways you can do it. Write out your own prophetic word about it. This is a practice I'm going to do that for this year with these words that I got, but this is a practice I started doing. I would say the last year and a half, really like, I started doing it like off of dreams where I would interpret the dream and then like form a prophetic word off the dream. But then I started like writing out my like listening for my own prophetic word from the Lord and writing it out for myself. And that's been really fun and just it's increased like how I hear him. But you could ask the Lord for a prophetic word on your words of the year, like speaking like a complete prophetic word over your year, which that would be cool. And write everything you hear. And then another way is asking the Lord how you can steward your word or words. So mine is vibrancy, right? That's one of the words. And again, it means full of energy, bright and strong, healthy, physical strength, and mental strength. So if I were to ask him, how can I steward this word? And, he may say things like, well, with strength of body, there's these supplements I want you to take. And there's a weight training program I want you to partner with. These are actually things that he's been speaking to me. With it being a vibrant year, there's these Disney trips. We got Disney passes for this year and saying yes. I felt that the Lord was like, this is your yes year. Yes, there are healthy boundaries. I set boundaries. I know how to say no. I know what to say no to. But as far as like my yes year is saying yes to the things that I might hesitate on out of fear. Maybe daily devotionals with him, things like that. So you want to ask the Lord, how can I steward the words that you've given me? And that is how you kind of like prepare for your year and partner with him prophetically for what's to come. And then this is one of my favorites. Buy or make things that have your word or words on them. So these are like prophetic acts, things that will remind you throughout the year. Okay. So one way I've been partnering with this spring season word and these cherry blossoms that were here, but not only on this magazine book, but the prophetic word that Jenna gave me is when I was at Disney, I was at Epcot and they have Japan there. At Epcot, they have this town that's, made to look like Japan. And I searched for cherry blossom tree that I could take a picture in front of. And so I went and I had that picture done. And then my son asked me what I wanted for Christmas. Birthday and Christmas, he'll usually get me Lego set. And so I was looking at, which Lego set do I want? And I picked out this Lego set that was a bonsai tree. And I picked the one that had the cherry blossom. So I wish I could show you. I'm currently building this Lego set and it is going to be on my desk in my office. And these are ways that I partner with God prophetically, these like prophetic acts that I put these things before my face. And so I'm asking, what's something I can do with vibrancy and mighty? So you can look for, buy or make things that have your word and the things that God's speaking to you and put them around you for your year. Like have them around you so that you can see them and partner with them and remember them and put it where you can see it. And so those are ways that I would receive and even partner and steward the things that God is speaking about our year. So remember, your word of the year is not just a word. It's not just this trend. It's not just this weak thing. Your word of the year, it's prophetic direction, promise, and focus from God. So that's how you want to go into this, is that I'm not just getting this. It's not just a word. I'm not just looking for a word so that I can say I got a word. No, I'm looking for prophetic direction and promise from you, Lord. And I'm going to partner with that word. And so I hope that this episode has not only inspired, but encouraged you to partner with God for your year, prepare for your year, ask him what he has, and intentionally steward it. And if this podcast has blessed you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. And I bless your year, and I will see you in the next episode.